The King's Avatar, Chapter 1203, The Winery on Which One Path. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1203, The Winery on Which One Path. Translator, Noam Yummy. Editor, Noam Yummy. Yishu's prediction was of course made with reason. Out of the 24 classes, launchers were ranked at the bottom in close combat ability. They were never absent in the voting for which class is weakest in close combat, and their votes were never low, at about the same rank as summoners. Now that he was being stepped on by Lord Grimm, an unspecialized with an immense number of low-level skills and an extremely fast rhythm, no one thought Yishu's words were unreasonable. Not necessarily. Quote, but Guo Xiao didn't agree. Once Punisher was over, Lord Grimm had only just moved his foot away when Burke immediately rolled and stood. However, the myriad manifestations umbrella had already transformed into a spear, striking forth like a viper. Clang! Yet, what everyone heard was the clash of metal on metal. This sound was most commonly heard when parrying. And, for launchers, there was only one move they could use in parrying, if nothing unexpected happened. Swing. Each of the 24 classes had a knock-up skill, which could be learned from the beginning. What launchers used was this hand cannon swinging skill, swing. Using this skill, Guo Xiao managed to parry Lord Grimm's dragon tooth. Burke had already jumped up, cannon shots flying, aimed downwards, and propelling him backwards. However, Lord Grimm truly had too many low-level skills. Even if the movement skills he had used before were all still in cooldown, he had other choices. Berserker skill, colliding stab. Lord Grimm dashed forth with his sword. Burke, even with the help of aerial cannon, couldn't match up to the speed of this dashing stab. He was immediately impaled on the blade and a combo followed after. The unspecialized's fast-paced close combat capabilities wiped the floor with Zheng Jiali and crushed Sun Jiaping. Now, the one facing this was a rookie, using a launcher, who was weak in close combat. There was no suspense to this anymore. However, nothing is certain yet. The rookie Guo Xiao still didn't give up. Your spirit is admirable, Yishu praised. If so, then I'll have to be more careful. The myriad manifestations umbrella changed forms rapidly, skill after skill pushed onto Burke. Guo Xiao was trying to find an opening, but there was none to be found. Every possibility of escape had been completely sealed off. How terrifying, he was still lamenting, his morale seeming to be completely unaffected, but at a time like this, his Burke had already fallen. Guo Xiao didn't give up, but he didn't find a single opportunity either. Walking out of the competitor booths, Guo Xiao looked at Yishu on the other side. Senior is so strong, Guo Xiao called out loudly, giving a thumbs up. Is he crazy, praising his opponent like that? Quote, He Ming and Co were close to jumping up, nervously looking at the audience. As expected, the audience had exploded into commotion. As for Yishu, he just waved and went off stage. In the individual competition, Happy won with a flawless 3-0. However, Guo Xiao, who had just returned to the player bench, didn't seem at all affected by this gap. Let's all do our best. Quote, despite just having lost, he was here encouraging his teammates. You little. Quote, He Ming's face was dark. As the captain, he had to say something. How could you compliment your opponent like that? Aren't you boosting their morale? Ruining ours. Quote, He Ming scolded. Because he really is strong, so I didn't really think much of it, Guo Xiao said. Guo Xiao's forthright reason made He Ming incapable of scolding him further. Just don't do it next time. He could only reply, deflating. They lost all 3 rounds of the individual competition. He Ming exchanged glances with his 2 old teammates. If everything had gone according to the original plan, then they would have given the first match to Yishu. Wang Zi would strike down Su Mucheng in the second match, and then the third match would be given to Guo Xiao, who was rather skilled. If he did well, they might have even ended things with a lead of 2-1, but now, reality seemed very far from their expectations. We're counting on you for the group arena, Wang Zi said. He Ming and Shen Jian were going to be part of the group arena. How come I feel that Happy doesn't seem affected by the magazine? Shen Jian gazed towards Happy's bench. Did they not look at those magazines after getting them? Wei Chen, Su Mucheng and Yushu are all experienced and mature players. Being able to adjust their emotions isn't unexpected from them. He Ming analyzed, feigning calm. In the group arena, Tang Ru will definitely come up. She'll be affected by it. What if she's not participating today? Shen Jian asked. Then the other younger players would definitely be affected. He Ming said. There's also that Fang Rui, Shen Jian reminded him. Fang Rui isn't all that used to the Qi Master yet, so his strength will be reduced. He Ming assured. Yeah, Shen Jian nodded. In reality, they had gone over these things who knows how many times before the match. I'll be going first. Jia Xing will take the middle and you'll be our last line of defense. He Ming announced the lineup at the end. Jia Xing was Miracle's battle mage player. His character was called Prideful Sorcery. The short break between the individual competition and group arena passed quickly. Under the signal given by the big screen, He Ming stood, bracing himself and walking towards the stage. On Happy's side, the first player to go up wasn't Tang Rui, who used to always lead the charge, but Fang Rui. After seeing Fang Rui, He Ming felt a little more pressure. The other was an all-star level player, after all. Relax, he's still getting used to the class switch. Focus yourself, don't get anxious, you have plenty of chances. He Ming recited to himself in his heart as he walked onto the stage and into Miracle's competition booth. On the other side, Fang Rui also entered his booth. The projection began to display images of the map that would be used for this match. Wechuan Path, a small map with a wuxia style, was a map that didn't have many obstacles for the 3 pro players of Miracle. That was usually how group arena maps were chosen. The 2 characters soon spawned at the 2 ends of Wechuan Path. In the center of the map, there was a winery with a large flagpole outside the door. A golden character meaning alcohol was stitched into the accompanying reed flag, fluttering in the wind, very eye-catching. The winery proved its worth of having such a flag, though. The winery had 3 large courtyards, pridefully taking up the center of the map. In terms of area, it made 90% of the map. Desolate, muddy earth surrounds the winery, and when the winds blew, the sand and dust kicked up could turn the sky yellow. With the winery in the center, the 2 characters would meet directly. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. The winery became a place that could be used to execute ambushes and sneak attacks. Knowing that his opponent was the master of dirty play, Fang Rui, He Ming instantly felt like the winery was filled with danger. However, Miracle's 3 wouldn't be unfamiliar with the map they chose. And for this map, the focus of it was the structure of the winery. He Ming had his elementalist, Rulo, approach the winery, but didn't charge inside. Though the 2 characters were the same distance apart from the winery, their movement speeds were different. If a Qi Master wanted to take this advantage, they could activate Qi Flowing Cloud and increase their speed, getting into the winery before an elementalist. Fang Rui would definitely use the terrain to his advantage. He Ming knew this with certainty. Thus, before he stepped into the winery, he stopped for a moment and went over the entire structure of the winery clearly and completely. After making an organized judgment, He Ming's elementalist, Rulo, walked into the winery from the side door. Immediately inside was a massive courtyard with both square and long tables. They were cluttered with many small taverns. However, no NPCs would be in an arena map. A place that should have been bustling was devoid of life, giving an eerie feel. He Ming didn't stay in the courtyard long, intending to have Rulo go further inside, when he suddenly heard a popping noise. What was that? He Ming's had very precise judgment, and he turned his view to the place the noise came from. All that was there was a wall, so the sound must have come from behind that wall. Was it an accident? or a trap. The gears in He-Ming's head turned quickly. Rulo walked over, but didn't immediately go through to the other side, but stuck close to the wall. This doorway led to a rather narrow corridor. Thinking of this terrain, He-Ming had an idea. Rulo flashed into the doorway, staff waving, and then, with a point, a nice wall appeared in the corridor. Only then did He-Ming have Rulo dart inside. How cautious! Fang Rui's taunt appeared in the channel. As expected, Fang Rui's boundless sea was inside the corridor. However, he had been trapped at the other end by the ice wall. If this is how it's going to be, you can't hit me either. Fang Rui sent a ROFL emoji, as if He-Ming's ice wall was a really stupid decision. He-Ming remained unruffled by the other's trash talk. He was glad he was so careful. If not, then he might have already been ambushed by Fang Rui's boundless sea. If neither of us can hit the other, then I'm leaving, Fang Rui said as boundless sea turned to leave. How could He-Ming let this dirty playing opponent go so easily after catching him? Ice Wall could block movement and attacks, but it couldn't block an elementalist's control over the elements. Rulo raised a hand and elemental power began to gather in the air, curling up from the ground, eventually gathering in Rulo's mind. Skill, absolute focus. After activation, it would turn the next skill into an instant cast. After that, he pointed his staff and the level 70 Elementalist Ultimate, Heavenly Lightning Earth and Fire, was activated through the ice wall. Fang Rui, who was in the middle of his escape, realized something was wrong, and hurriedly had Boundless Sea roll backwards, taking a small amount of damage. When he looked again, the lightning and fire had completely blocked off his escape route. Charging through wasn't a good idea. Under the player's control, if a target tried to simply charge throughout Heavenly Thunder, Earth and Lightning, then it wouldn't just be damage they'd take, but they'd also be rooted, so in the end they still couldn't go anywhere. How shameless. Take this. Fang Rui sent his Boundless Sea turned and dashed forwards, his palm striking the ice wall. If ice wall wasn't destroyed by an attack, then it would remain for quite a long time, even longer than Heaven, Lightning, Earth and Fire. However, Fang Rui didn't want Boundless Sea to stay here and admire the scenery, waiting for time to pass. If he were trapped in this small space and let He-Ming chant a few more AoE spells, then he wouldn't have a chance at dodging. Fang Rui didn't mind using this powerful skill to immediately shatter the ice wall. End chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 1204. Fang Rui figured out. Audio source, WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1204. Fang Rui figured out. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Pa 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 pa. Boundless Sea's flash burst smashed into the ice. Spider web-like cracks instantly spread, and in the next second, the ice wall shattered into tiny bits of ice. But by this time, He-Ming's Relo had finished casting another spell. Thunder Apocalypse. Lightning crashed down from above, one bolt after the other. He-Ming had calculated Fang Rui's options and positioned Thunder Apocalypse such that Boundless Sea was perfectly centered inside. Dodge. With the denseness and speed of the lightning bolts, dodging was extremely difficult. Reinforced iron bones. It would increase his defenses and give him super armor, but lightning bolts produced a short paralysis effect, completely different from the hit stun from physical attacks. Reinforced iron bones super armor would not be enough to move freely inside Thunder Apocalypse. Chi Guard. Fang Rui chose to use this Chi Master defensive skill. Boundless Sea's two hands traced an arc from the top of his head to his sides, forming a defensive Chi barrier. However, with Thunder Apocalypse striking the shield, the Chi Guard wouldn't last long. It was unable to ward off the destructive might of Thunder Apocalypse. Moreover, this purely defensive position gave He-Ming time to cast another spell. Blizzard. It wasn't enough time to cast a powerful spell. He Ming had good judgment and cast a relatively fast spell, layering Blizzard on top of Thunder Apocalypse. Boundless Sea's Chi guard shattered in an instant. Piercing lightning. He Ming didn't hesitate and threw out an instant cast. The distance between Rollo and Boundless Sea was extremely close. For an elementalist with weak, close combat abilities, it could be considered a very dangerous distance, but it was because of this short distance that Fang Rui could do nothing about this piercing lightning. Lightning element spells were the fastest spells. A bolt of lightning pierced through Boundless Sea. The knockback from magic attacks should not be looked down upon. Piercing lightning pushed Boundless Sea back a step, and Thunder Apocalypse and Blizzard had yet to fade away. The elemental spell formation set down by He Ming was giving Fang Rui an extremely difficult time. He Ming activated Mobile Cast. In the end, elementalists need to maintain a distance away from their opponents. Before the two-dot spells completely dissipated, Rollo retreated while casting his next spell. And Boundless Sea? Paralyzed by Thunder Apocalypse and slowed by Blizzard, Fang Rui didn't have any good ways to escape from his predicament. However, he couldn't let He Ming continue casting spells. Forcefully eating the damage and seizing the gap between dot ticks was one way. Chi Blade. He Ming hadn't expected Fang Rui to be able to find an opening to let out an attack while under the barrage of two-dot skills. Even though he had yet to fully switch classes, his ability to grasp openings showed why Fang Rui was an all-star. Having activated Mobile Cast and in the middle of a cast, Rollo's movement speed was very slow. Chi Blade was a rather difficult skill to dodge too, so He Ming immediately cancelled his skill and cast a teleport. Rollo suddenly disappeared. However, Fang Rui's reaction speed was quick. As the master of playing dirty, his first thought was that the opponent was behind him. Boundless Sea turned around. Sure enough, Rollo was behind his back and had thrown a fireball at him. At this point, Thunder Apocalypse had ended, but Blizzard still remained. Although Blizzard's damage could not be compared to Thunder Apocalypse, the slow effect was a headache. Boundless Sea's movements were slowed, and He Ming had boldly teleported to a short distance between them and attacked. No matter how fast Fang Rui reacted, with his character unable to respond, he had no way of dodging. Bang bang bang. The fireball struck Boundless Sea and exploded. Fire element spells dealt the most damage out of all four elements. Fireball was only a low-level skill, but its explosiveness couldn't be ignored. Rollo wasn't close to being done yet. He Ming was extremely focused, carefully and attentively watching Boundless Sea's situation, planning every step of his offensive. After Fireball was a Dark Missile. It was a low-level Dark Element spell. Dark Element spells were neither fast nor strong, but they had strange effects. Dark Missile followed closely behind Fireball and stabbed into Boundless Sea. The Dark Element wasn't Rollo's main element. This Dark Missile was only at level 1, so its damage was limited. However, its effect still came into effect. After being struck by Dark Missile, Boundless Sea spun 180 degrees. It was just a turn of the body, but in a high-level match, it was an exploitable detail. Having your back turned to the opponent could be considered as a short blind, as you wouldn't be able to know the opponent's next action. No matter how fast you're turned, you would always be a half beat behind. Fang Rui was an experienced veteran though. He wouldn't make such a rookie mistake. It didn't matter what was going on behind him. He immediately had Boundless Sea roll forward. Unfortunately, this sort of experienced response wasn't outside of He Ming's expectations. Elemental power. During this tight window, He Ming had Rollo cast the lowest-leveled elementalist skill. It was the slowest of all 24 knock-up skills because it required a cast time. However, of the 24 knockups, it was one of 2 long-range knockups. As long as it was cast and the target was within its range, there was no way of defending against it. In exchange for the downside of needing to cast the spell, this elementalist's knockup was given a powerful upside. Boundless Sea was inside elemental power's range. As soon as he finished rolling, he was lifted into the air. Raging flames. A pillar of fire erupted from beneath Boundless Sea, swallowing him whole. Rollo continued to wave his staff. From the light gathering on his staff, the next spell had to be a powerful one. Rays of light burst forth, radiating waves of red fire. The magic condensed onto the tip of the staff and then ignited fiercely. The flames danced and swayed, letting out the cry of a bird. New Elementalist Level 75 Skill, Firebird. Bang! A blazing firebird flew towards Boundless Sea, who was falling down after being knocked high into the air by raging flames, and engulfed him. Boundless Sea burned as he flew backwards and crashed into a wall behind him. His health fell at a visible rate. The fireball left an imprint on the wall, slowly dissipating from the burning Boundless Sea. Fire element spells didn't have much else other than overwhelming damage. This fight was truly surprising. Even though Fang Rui had switched classes, he had a Xing All-Star title on him. No one would dare to underestimate him. During this period of adjustment, his Chi Master had been doing quite well too. Even though there were comments about his problems here and there, Fang Rui's win rate during these past 8 rounds was quite good. And now it looked like his honeymoon period was over. After 8 rounds of observation, Happy's rookies had yet to crash into a wall, but Fang Rui had already been completely seen through. Fang Rui wasn't able to display his dirtiness this fight, and after being caught by He Ming, he was being beaten senselessly. At this rate, He Ming would achieve a perfect win. The applause from the crowd was thunderous. After losing 3 individual competition rounds, there was finally a show worth seeing. I really am a useless dim sum. Fang Rui was sullen. In the previous press conference, Yi Shu had given him a snide remark, calling him a useless dim sum. WuxaWorldAudio.com. He knew that Yi Shu was just joking, but starting from the previous round, Fang Rui knew that his rhythm had been completely seen through. In face of Wang Gxe, he wasn't able to find even a chance of winning. And in this match, He Ming, who was clearly a level lower than Wang Gxe, was completely crushing him too. Fang Rui was the master of playing dirty, but just because he was dirty didn't mean he had no pride. Right now, he was feeling wounded. Switching classes could be a reasonable excuse, but he didn't want to lower his expectations for himself because of this excuse. If he lost his heart, he would only lose again and again. You really have some skill. After being roasted into a half-dead state by the Firebird, Boundless Sea had dropped to the bottom of the wall, but Fang Rui still typed these words in chat. He Ming ignored them. After Firebird, Rollo drew an ice line, trapping Boundless Sea in the center. Afterwards, he calmly started casting a new spell. There was still some distance between his Elementalist and Fang Rui's Chi Master. Rollo was sitting comfortably outside Boundless Sea's attack range. If Ice Line wasn't triggered, it would last for 12 seconds. 12 seconds was more than enough time for any spell, so just obediently sit there in prison. He Ming felt pleased with himself. His was very satisfied with his playing this fight. This is the way to victory, right? Bright light gathered onto his staff again, clearly another large spell. Are you addicted to high-level skills? Fang Rui chatted. Take a look at this move. Fang Rui sent a shouting emoji. What move? He Ming's mind rapidly turned. He was at a completely safe distance. No Chi Master skill could reach him. Chi Masters had no such skill, nor did any of fighter classes. He Ming had very carefully considered everything beforehand. Qigong blast. Fang Rui shouted the skill he used for morale support. Boundless Sea flipped over his palm and placed it on the wall behind him. The imprint burned onto the wall by the Firebird crumbled. With a boom, an ugly dog hole was split open. "Come at me," Fang Rui shouted in the chat as he had Boundless Sea run through the dog hole. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1205 The Labor Pains of Class Transition. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1205 The Labor Pains of Class Transition. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. He Ming was dumbstruck. Rollo's fearless chanting of powerful spells instantly became purposeless. That ugly dog hole seemed to split the entire world into two. Boundless Sea had vanished. That dog hole didn't seem that big, yet he had very precisely darted right through. Fang Rui's mechanics were extremely precise, but how he got so good at worming through holes was a mystery. He Ming didn't know of any drawing with this sort of content, and he believed that Wind Howl wouldn't have something like that either. His wonderful lead broken by this dog hole? He Ming couldn't accept that. He immediately cancelled the high-level skill he was casting and hastily adjusted his character's position. Though the hole wasn't big, an elementalist could utilize their elemental power so long as they could see. But when he got there and looked at that hole, complete darkness. He couldn't see anything on the other side. He Ming's face clouded over. That bastard had blocked the hole. What sort of technique was this? That was way too low, wasn't it? The structure of the map quickly flashed through He Ming's mind, and he immediately brought up what the terrain was on the other side in his mind. If he went around through this corridor, then that would be too far. He'd have no idea where Fang Rui would stash his Boundless Sea by the time he got there. The fastest way was still to retrace his steps out of the corridor and climb over the wall. He Ming immediately came to a decision. Rollo hastily retreated backwards. Just looking at the hole made him irritated. Swiftly, Rollo's staff raised and he chanted a fireball. Boom. The fireball accurately flew through the dog hole, sending waves of fire inside and smashing against whatever was blocking it. He Ming didn't want to waste time here. He had randomly flung the skill just to vent a little before Rollo hastily dashed away. But suddenly, his character seemed to slip from his control and was flung towards the dog hole. Cloud grasping fist. He Ming immediately realized what it was, but apart from seething about this dirty play, he couldn't do anything about it. Rollo was flung horizontally towards the dog hole, but naturally wouldn't be able to fly right through. In the end, he crashed against the entrance, his health even slipping a little. Pulse break intelligence. Flash burst. Boundless Sea's hand came through the hole and these two skills were consecutively blasted onto Rollo. With this chi attack, even the walls were shaking. Then, both of Boundless Sea's hands came through, grabbing onto Rollo. With a yank, the parts of the wall around the dog hole shifted out, almost to the point of shattering. The enlarged dog hole was enough for Rollo to get through, and he was immediately thrown to the ground by a back throw from Boundless Sea. The crowd was dumbstruck. The big screen wasn't even sure which shot to show this from, so it just ended up replaying this moment from several different angles at once. Rollo, having clambered to his feet, had already been completely closed in on by Boundless Sea. Teleport was still on cooldown, so he couldn't pull away. Chi Masters had the weakest close combat ability out of the 4 fighter classes, but it was better than Elementalists. Now, Fang Rui didn't bother with any tricks and had Boundless Sea teach Rollo a lesson with his fists. No, it wasn't exactly with his fists. Chi master skills were primarily palm strikes and jabs, very rarely punches. When they connected, it seemed light, without much strength, but they played with the inside of the body. Those light strikes injected internal energy, and the damage it dealt wasn't second to any physical punch. With the slaps and hits, He Ming's Rullo didn't look like he was losing in a very ugly way. On the contrary, all the dust that had gotten on him when he was thrown to the ground had been struck clean. At the same time, his health bar was also being cleaned. He Ming didn't want to be slapped to death by Boundless Sea like this. Fang Rui's Chi Master was still riddled with holes because he wasn't familiar enough with his class, and he was hindered by the habits he had spent years cultivating as a thief player. Now, when he was attacking, he'd show a lot of openings when comboing. This was no secret. It even appeared in the news. And what He Ming had to do was to not miss the opportunity when it came. Rullo swung his staff. Even elementalists could swing their staffs for normal attacks. He Ming fought back as much as he could. He couldn't just stand there against Fang Rui's palm strikes like a sitting duck. His efforts weren't for nothing. When the dust on his robes had mostly been slapped clean, Boundless Sea finally stumbled. Piercing lightning. This instant cast spell blasted forth. At such a close distance, Fang Rui wouldn't have time to dodge no matter how quickly he reacted. Boundless Sea, struck by piercing lightning, went numb. In that short time, Rullo once again activated Absolute Focus and then followed up with a cast-free level 75 Ice Element Ultimate, Absolute Zero. They were simply too close. Although piercing lightning's short paralysis had passed, Fang Rui didn't have the time to escape Absolute Zero's range. Instantly, Boundless Sea became an ice statue. One of his legs was still in mid-air, suspended in his fleeing position. He Ming let out a breath of relief. Absolute Zero had the longest freezing time out of all ice element skills of the 24 classes. When maxed out, it would freeze for up to 8 seconds. He Ming didn't rush, having Rullo pull away. In 8 seconds, he didn't rush to attack, because attacks would reduce the freeze time of Absolute Zero. In a one-on-one, it was best to use these 8 seconds to prepare to launch an offense. Fang Rui's Boundless Sea maintained that rather silly pose, forced to watch as He Ming's Rullo escaped to a position and distance suited for an elementalist's attacks. Fang Rui was helpless. Like a rookie that met the rookie block, he had met the labor pains of transitioning between classes. He had met it last round and hit it this round too. Even after using his masterful dirty play to save himself from the torrent of attacks and complete a counter-attack, he still revealed an opening that the opponent was able to grasp. He had been too greedy. Fang Rui criticized himself. With how well he was settling in, it was better for him to just use simple and fast methods to stall his opponents and chip away at them, like with Zhou Guangyi. The problem was that such simple methods would be easily seen through by pro players. Fang Rui didn't have an infinite amount of tricks like that to use. The current him was at his wit's end. Fuck, if only I was still a thief. No, he had already come this far, how could he still have thought like that? Having these thoughts meant that his determination and will weren't enough. Now that he had switched classes, he had to completely become a Chi Master. The tricks he had as a thief couldn't be employed anymore. After confirming this to himself, he suddenly had a doubt. Could they really not be employed anymore? A second doubt rose from his heart. What a joke. Thief and Chi Master, two completely different classes that had no similarities whatsoever. The classes might not have similarities, but what about the thought process? Could the thief's playstyle and strategies not be used by a Chi Master at all? Imagine if he were a thief, who had acquired the skills of a Chi Master. Thinking from this angle, Fang Rui's eyes suddenly lit up. What if he was still a thief, but had a bunch of Chi master skills? These thoughts boiled in his head, a movement of ideas that not even Absolute Zero could freeze. It's about time. Quote, He Ming, advantage back in his hands, typed in the chat. It felt pretty good to have this sort of advantage against an all-star level player. He took note of Absolute Zero's timing and, without wasting any time at all, a rather long chant was finished and a skill flew out. Firestorm. Elementalists had ice, fire, light and dark element spells, but because they only had a limited number of skill points, they couldn't learn all the skills of all the elements. WashOurWorldAudio.com. Usually they would choose 2 elements to focus on and spent their leftover points on some helpful skills from the other 2 elements. He Ming's Elementalist focused on light and fire. The fastest light and the fiercest fire. Fire and light could be called the most offense-oriented combination for elementalists. Rollo's equipment naturally would prioritize buffing light and fire. As for ice and darkness, He Ming mostly used them for their effects. Now that Boundless Sea had been frozen by Absolute Zero, he was about to receive the fiercest attack. It was unfortunate that the strongest of HS skills, Fire Bird, was still on cooldown. He Ming didn't have many options. The Firestorm whirled in and Boundless Sea quickly got out of Absolute Zero's effect, but at the same time, lightning hell fell from the skies. For a fire and light elementalist like Rollo, how could he lack the level 75 spell, Lightning Hell? And this ultimate of light element spells had inherited the most distinct characteristic of its element, a quick attack with a short chant. Lightning Hell had to be chanted, but the chant went by like a weak, low-level spell. The time it took for Firestorm to devour the effects of Absolute Zero was enough to finish Lightning Hell's chant. A bolt of lightning fell just as Absolute Zero faded. Boundless Sea had no way of dodging. 1 bolt, 2 bolts, 3 bolts, 4 bolts. A full 6 bolts of lightning struck. The lightning bolts actually didn't strike soon after one another. But, for Lightning Hell, so long as one struck, the target would be locked on, and the rest would be directed towards the target by the system. Boundless Sea, after taking the first strike, had then taken all 5 other strikes. After 2 ultimates, Boundless Sea had once again taken heavy damage. The damage from the attacks he sent at Rollo, almost like he was patting the dust from him, was easily returned full force. Want to run? Seeing Boundless Sea darting through after escaping from Lightning Hell, Rollo pointed his staff and a fireball sped out. Boundless Sea practically lunged forwards to dodge the fireball, then coming to a roll, jump, crouch, then roll. Boundless Sea rapidly moved forth using this weird method. He Ming was stunned. This was quite an unusual way of movement, but you couldn't call it weird. This was actually rather common. Thieves liked to move in this way. Since traps were the main skills of thieves, they had to crouch to set the traps, so the character would use crouching movements and maintain low set movements like rolling. Staying close to the ground allowed thieves to maintain the form they need to set traps. It was both convenient and discreet. But this set of movements for these skills had appeared on a Chi Master. Ha, are you going crazy from longing for your thief? He Ming sent a ROFL emoji, yet that was when he suddenly realized that something was pulsing in the air. Chi Blade. End chapter.